What's going on, everybody? You're listening to the Point2Point NHL Recap Show, Season 3, Episode 25. I'm Pascal Proud, joined by Mark Havelak. Mark, I know you had a rough week last week, losing in the finals of both our fantasy hockey leagues, but outside of that, what's going on with you, dude?
Yeah, I mean, thanks for bringing it up. Pretty rough ending to both of those. But I mean, at the end of the day, I'll just probably look back at it, and just be like happy I made it there. You know what I mean? I was trying to repeat in one league and get my first championship in the other, but time wasn't now, dude. Hopefully, the time will come. But yeah, besides that, I mean, doing pretty good. Actually, like enjoying baseball fantasy for the first time
Yeah.
after converting over. My team sucks right now, but I mean, I'm just trying to make it better week by week, I guess. But man, the weather's getting nice. Habs clinched a playoff spot this past weekend. Life's pretty good for the most part, dude. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good, man. As you mentioned, the baseball fantasy, I'm pretty dialed in on that. To be honest, I'm loving it, even though both the leagues I'm in, I'm not off to the greatest start, so it could be a little better there, but it's super entertaining to the point that I think the first weekend of MLB, I was like, fuck this. I'm buying MLB TV. I want to watch, just skip through all these games. Because the nice thing about MLB TV and baseball fantasy compared to like hockey fantasy or basketball or football, even, is that for baseball, it's like when your pitchers are pitching, they're only pitching what, half the game because it's like every other top and bottom of the inning. And then your batters are batting once every 9 times, right? So for baseball fantasy, you could have five guys playing at once, all at the same time throughout five different games. But the way it works out with them only batting once every 9 times, you can kind of flip through the games and catch every at bat and watch your starting pitchers throw every pitch, which is pretty nice. So I've been dialed in, just pretty much just I'm like, oh, this guy's about to bat. Let me tune into this game. Oh, this guy's pitching. Let me go watch that game. So it's definitely been interesting because I'll have three monitors on at night and just be watching all that, skipping through the game. So it's definitely enjoyable. Let's talk about the NHL though. That's what we're here for, Marky. Just a week after the Las Vegas Golden Knights made a coaching change, the New York Islanders have done the same thing with 4 games left, relieving Patrick Waugh of his coaching duties. Pete DeBoer has been hired as Waugh's replacement behind the bench. Mark, what are your thoughts on the Waugh firing here?
Kind of shocked, bro. Like I can't lie. I know I said I wasn't like super shocked about the Vegas one, just because I thought something's up with Vegas, right? Like just they've got a pretty good roster, but they weren't playing well. I guess I was sort of surprised, but not as surprised as this. Like I think this is also another attempt at being like the season's not done yet, right? Like they were actually like in a playoff spot when they made this change, and then they didn't play yesterday, and they got jumped by the Flyers, who won an OT yesterday. So they still got 4 games left on the season, which is crazy to me. I mean, we're this deep into the season. Every team's got like 3 to 4 games left. So, I mean, I guess at worst, it's like a little adjustment period with your team if you don't end up making the playoffs. And then, like, throughout the offseason, training camp, he'll be there. I am really surprised. I saw a couple clips. Like, I haven't really watched a whole lot of Islanders games live lately. I think the last one I caught live was they played Ottawa a couple weeks ago on a Saturday, and I think they lost in the last minute. And that's actually where a lot of people online are saying that's the game that they think broke the team a little bit, when they lost that game late in the third period, and Ottawa was chasing them for a wild card spot, and it really put them back in the mix, right? But I do kind of agree with what, I don't know if you saw it, what Emily Kaplan reported. She said that she was told that they really felt like this was necessary because like they've been like relying on Sorokin like way too
Yeah.
much this year. And they think that Pete DeBoer's defensive structure can help him out a lot more than Patrick Waz can. Look, I think Pete DeBoer is a great coach, and he's been deep in playoffs and even to a couple Stanley Cup finals. He's really good when the series is on the line in game sevens. The problem is for this year, it's just I don't know how much runway they have left, right? Like they can win some games and get in the playoffs for sure, but they're also kind of they're on the outside looking in right now, and teams have games in hand on them, which isn't great, right? So what I'm saying is he could come in and do a great job right away, but it might not necessarily matter for this year. And personally, I don't think they're going to get in the playoffs, but maybe he's also hoping like, all right, new guy in here, experienced. People are going to respect the crap out of him. Maybe we can just go 4-0 and get in the playoffs, right?
Yeah, for me, when I look at the firing, I agree with you that it was surprising. I kind of look at it like I'm kind of looking at it in two separate parts. First off, the fact that just Wall was fired, and then also the second part being the timing of it, right? Like the fact that Patrick Wall was fired, I'm a bit surprised about, but I'm not like shocked, jaw on the ground kind of reaction to it. Because at the end of the day, the GM Darsh, right? Like he wasn't the one that hired Wall. Wall was hired when Morello was still there, and we've seen it time and time again throughout the NHL that when new general managers come in take over a team, one of the first moves they like to do is bring in their guy for behind the bench, right? And Patrick Waugh, he wasn't Darsh's hire, so I'm not overly surprised there that Waugh got fired, but the surprising really shocks me, right? Like with 4 games left on the season, it is very weird. I thought if Waugh is going to let go, that's more of a move you do like first day of the offseason, right? First day of the offseason, you let Waugh go, you bring in the coach you want. You make that move then. I didn't really think that while the New York Islanders are here making a playoff push trying to get in, they're going to let go of Waugh and bring in DeBoer then. And in the back of my head, I'm kind of wondering there is was DeBoer maybe interviewing for some other positions potentially, like where there's some teams looking at him where they were like, we're gonna sweep him up right away, and that led Darsh to make this move now because I feel like if maybe DeBoer wasn't actively out there on the market for some other jobs, maybe they do wait to the off season, right? For me, I, I I don't like the timing of it to be honest. I really don't like the timing. I think that you have 4 games left here. You're trying to make the playoffs, and you're bringing in this new voice, this new kind of structure here, right? Like, how is this really good? Like, what do you really think this is going to do here for the Islanders to get them into the playoffs if you're Darsh? Like, I don't really see a road here where the Islanders are going to magically be this way better team and go 4-0 and be a lock for the playoffs now, right? I think it would have been a similar outcome if you had Waugh behind the bench to if you had DeBoer behind the bench for the rest of these, like for these last 4 games, right? So would have preferred to see them probably wait to the offseason to make this move. The other thing too is for a while, like you can't you can't even really say he's been a bad coach this year or this season. I do agree that this team heavily relies on Ilya Sorokin and net, right? Like you look at Sorokin's stats, he's top 5 in high danger save percentage. New York's Islanders are clearly giving up a lot of high danger scoring chances, right? And without Sorokin, the season probably looks a little bit different for them. But like, how much of that can you really put on Wall compared to partially the team that's in front of them, right? Like comparing it to Vegas and the coaching move they made, like Vegas going into the season, this is a team that we had as cup contenders. This is a team that we had as a playoff lock, right? This is a team that really had high expectations for. You look at the New York Islanders, I don't think anybody was going to the playoffs saying this is a team that needs to make the playoffs. And if they don't make the playoffs, it's a big fail of the season, right? Like I can all you can almost look at the Islanders season so far and partially say they've overachieved a little bit. And for
A
them
little
to
bit. I think it's more than a little bit. I think this is a team that if they have average goaltending, they're like probably 5, 6 points, maybe even more out of a playoff spot right now.
see a coach get fired that has a team in the position that they're in right now, like it is a little bit weird to see. I wasn't quite expecting it to happen right now.
I
But
think what you said is exactly right, but and also I agree with you when you're saying like yeah, like this team they weren't expected to get in the playoffs like all year they've been kind of hanging around, they've been in it and but I think that narrative shifted when they decided to buy at the deadline. I think now it's completely different. I think now it's like okay, we've got like a kid who basically in his first year is a number one defenseman already in the NHL and we're never going to be bad enough again where we are going to be picking in the top 5 most likely. They weren't even bad enough last year. They got lucky, right?
yeah,
And I think he's more looking at this like we're not going to be bad again. We're going to re-sign these guys like Pajot and I assume Anders Lee's probably going to re-up there. I think the narrative shifted when they traded for Braden Shen, man. I think now the whole expectation is them to get in the playoffs because they're also looking at it like we just drafted Kayshawn Aitchison and Victor Eklund who are coming. We still have some young
Yep.
guys coming with a pretty good core, but I also just am not necessarily convinced that they're good enough. But they did a good job, even like in the Lou era, of like getting a couple young assets near the end, right? When they get Callum Ritchie, and then you obviously get the
Yeah.
first overall pick, and right. So I don't know. I just think they have a different narrative around their team now. I think that internally, it's like we need to compete because like we have this elite goalie, we've got a number one defenseman who's just going to get better every single year and could probably be a Norris candidate, maybe even as early as next season. And their forward core just like isn't bad enough to be like bad. I
Yeah.
think it's at worst like below average.
Yeah, for me, it's like they're kind of stuck in that mushy middle where they're not good enough to be a like real contender right now, and they're also not bad enough, as you mentioned, to be picking bottom five or even really bottom 10 right now, right? Like they're kind of maybe going to be at worst between that 11 to what, let's say 20th overall picks, picking somewhere in there. And they do have some prospects still coming up on the way, right? Like you got Cole Arsman coming up. Callum Ritchie, he's still young, like he's gonna grow and develop. You mentioned Aitchison and Eklund. I just don't know if the time is now to be throwing your chips kind of in the middle, saying, let's go for it now. We're a playoff team. We're gonna be a playoff team for the next 10 years and turn into a contender, right?
I
Like,
think they should have just let the season kind of ride out. Like
yeah,
maybe do something minor at the deadline to like reward someone. Like maybe use a second round pick to get some depth. So I remember even we talked about the whole Warren Fogle thing there. Like that would have been something that I wouldn't have minded them doing just to bring in, a guy that's got playoff experience in case you do end up getting there. But like yeah, they are in the mushy middle. But I will say like I don't see them as some other teams in the sense that like I don't think they're like fucked. Like
yeah,
they've got some prospects coming. You've got a great defenseman. You've got a great goalie. Like maybe this can turn it around. But I agree. I don't know if the time is now. I think Darsh is getting a little bit excited about what's going on and he's making these moves. And I just necessarily didn't think that Braden Shen move was the right thing to do in the first place. Like they basically have got a guy in that in JG Bajo already. Like, and Braden Shen's just not a top six centerman at this point. So I probably would have done something else or just stay where you are. Like if you miss the playoffs, like who cares, man?
yeah.
Like your fans aren't really going to be pissed off about it. They're going to be pissed off now that you used a first round pick and a third round pick to bring in a 34-year-old centerman and you might miss the playoffs.
Yeah, like that's what I would be pissed about. If you're giving up a first round, if you're the Islanders and you're in their position and you're giving up those assets, I would have much preferred to see them go out and get a guy that fits into their core a little bit better, right? Like maybe somebody that's been in the league for a couple years but still has some upside, right?
You
Somebody
know who
maybe
they should have been in on earlier in the year is Chinnikov.
yeah, Chinnikov. I was gonna say he's a good name. Like um, Kent Johnson in Columbus, right? Like if things don't really work out there, maybe he's on the market. Like those are more the guys that I would have liked to see the Islanders go after, not a 30 mid 30s players, right? It just is a bit weird for the timeline there. Mark,
It
looking at
seems
the
sorry, I was gonna say it seems really odd right now. Like you never know how it could play out, but like the Islanders and the Red Wings gave up a first round pick for a mid 30s player at the deadline, and they both might miss the playoffs. But then
yeah,
you look at like Columbus, it's like okay, they gave up a second and a third for Connor Garland, but it's like it's not a first round pick you're giving up, and also like he signed to a pretty reasonable extension after this,
yeah,
right? And he's a guy that's with your team moving forward. Not that those other guys are rentals, but I mean they don't really have much term left on their deal. So, I mean, it would have been better if they just kind of did something like Columbus did.
yeah. I would have much preferred to see that. Looking at the Pete DeBoer side of this, though, Mark, how do you like that hiring? Like, do you like the coach that they're bringing in? Would you have wished maybe that they waited things out a bit and seen how the market played out in the summer?
I mean, I was a little bit surprised. I mean, he did say openly, like on a podcast a couple weeks ago, that he was really open to like anything. Like he wasn't, if anybody called him, he would be willing to take the call and move forward with it. So, I mean, that totally matches that, right? I mean, I think one thing for him, it's probably like, wow, like I could coach Matthew Schaefer. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And it's like I've also got an elite goaltender. Like there's good traits to this team. They are still like up and coming. Like I they might be a little bit worse like next season if they don't get good goaltending, but I wouldn't say they're gonna be like down in the basement for like a long period of time. You know what I mean? So I mean it's pretty intriguing in that sense. I mean, for the Islanders, it's exactly what I said. I think this whole narrative of the team has pushed, and they've been going. They're slowly think they're entering this window of like they can win, right? So that's a guy that's been far in playoffs. He's been to a couple Stanley Cup Finals. So I think if you're overall looking at it, like not taking the timing of it out of it, like it's a good hire. Like I mean, he's a good coach, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, I do like that it is DeBoer. Like if it was a different coach, I would have hated this even more. But I do think DeBoer is a good coach, and he is going to do good things with New York. Like I kind of look back at his time in Dallas and now with the Rangers, and to be honest, or pardon me, with the Islanders, and you can almost see like a bit of similarities between the two teams and the way they're structured a little bit, right? Like, and don't get me wrong, I'm not going out here and saying that the New York Islanders are as good as the Dallas Stars, but there are some comparables there, right? Like Matthew Schaefer, he kind of reminds you of Mira Heiskanen a little bit, right? Just a guy on the back end who can absolutely eat minutes, great two-way defenseman, right? You got a great goaltender, which he had in Dallas, right? So it is going to be interesting to see what he can do with this team and where he can lead them to.
hopefully he handles him properly, though. Is all I'll say because he signed a 5-year contract. So
I bet you the Islanders fans are praying for that as well. Mark, last question I have for you here when we're talking about the Islanders is, do you think this firing and this change is going to push them into the playoffs?
no, I'm still on the fence that they're gonna miss the playoffs this year. I think they just haven't been too good lately. I mean, they can go 3-1 and get some help. They can probably get in, but I think we're just so deep into the season that these games in hand matter. Like
Yeah,
I think the real route is probably getting the 3 seed in the Metro, and it's like the
yeah,
Islanders just pass. Sorry, the Flyers just passed them, and they've got a game in hand, right? Columbus is right there too, and they've got a game in hand. They would have to have a lot of things going right for them to get in. My question to you, sorry, I wanted to ask you was, do you think that like they pulled the trigger on this now just because he's like Darsh is probably thinking like, oh my god, like after 4 games, like and we're done, even if it's like the day after like we don't make the playoffs, like someone else could be going in on this guy. You know what I mean?
oh, like going in on DeBoer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was partially wondering, right? Like I'm partially wondering that if they made this move now because they thought that DeBoer might be in line for a job somewhere else, right? And the other thing too is like let's say the Islanders did make the playoffs. It's like you can't fire your coach in the middle of a playoff series, right? And all these teams that didn't make the playoffs, there might be some movement there with the coaching. So it might even be like a whole other week or 2 weeks after the regular season ends before your season's even over, right? And DeBoer could be long hired by that point, right? So I really do believe that the reason for the timing of this move is just based off the fact that DeBoer is going to be Darsh's guy, and he really wanted him, and he did feel that a team was going to come in there and sweep him up maybe if they didn't hire him now. Mark, moving on to the Toronto Maple Leafs here. We had a firing there last week. Unfortunately, the firing happened literally about an hour and a half after we stopped recording. So great timing for us. But Brad Treliving, he's out on the market now, no longer employed by the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they have started their search, pardon me, for a new GM. First question I have for you is, who do you think would be a good fit for GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs?
Yeah, I've been trying to figure that out, man. I really don't have a great answer for you right now. I think the problem I'm having with this is I just think that they want to go experience. Like they don't want to bring in someone who hasn't been a GM before, like they did. But I also just sort of think that might be the way to go. Like honestly, I really like this Sonny Meta guy with Florida.
Yep.
He's a real analytics guy, and he's had a huge part in um, with Bill Zito and building the Florida Panthers, right? And I think bringing in someone like that could be a really intriguing hire. I mean, Kevin Adams' name's been floated around. I don't really think the Leafs are going to go that route, to be honest. I would be shocked if they went that route. And a couple other guys, I mean, Mike Gillis has been in there. He hasn't been a GM in the NHL, though, for I think 12 years now. I mean, he's worked in some organizations. I mean, that could be a guy where it's like almost like a Jason Botterill, where he's like sort of been out of it for a bit and he gets a job. And I mean, I don't know if it's just because it's Toronto. Like Chris Pronger's name's floating around a lot.
Yeah.
My thing with Chris Pronger is like I don't doubt that he knows what he would be like he knows what he's doing and he understands players. But I mean, he has had some time in the Florida Panthers organization. He's worked for the NHL. The thing is, I just don't really necessarily know his philosophy on building a team and if it's going to be the right
Yeah.
answer. And is he a guy that's going to be wanting like full control over everything if he wants the job? Like, is MLSE willing to do that for him? Like, I don't really know. Like, Gretzky coached an NHL team and it didn't work out. It doesn't really mean just because you had really good experience in the NHL that it's going to translate successfully over to management, right? I'm not criticizing the guy. Maybe he could take the job and do a great job with it, but it's like I think that would be I think that would be a way bigger question mark than like hiring a guy that's been like an analytics guy and worked in with a team and been successful over the past, you know what I mean? Like 5 or 6 years is what I'm trying to say. Like I just think for the Leafs, it's like, what do they want to do? They sort of have to retool, but they want to win. It's like if someone like Sonny Meta's available, it's like, dude, this guy's won back-to-back Stanley Cups. He's been to another Stanley Cup final. He's literally been under the regime of building a team that we're talking about it being a dynasty under a great general
Yeah.
manager. Like, would that not be an intriguing hire? Like, I would have to ask a Leaf fan because it would be like, it's like, it's kind of a disaster. Like, let's
It's a
not.
complete disaster.
It's a disaster right now because it doesn't seem like Keith Pelly's on the same page. He kind of says he understands scouting, or so he says he has nothing to do with scouting, and then he's talking about players on other teams. It's like
Michael
they need
Hagee?
someone. Yeah, yeah. I just think they need to bring someone in that has experience and just give them the rope, right? Like,
Yeah.
and I would think if a Leaf fan were to answer this, and I mean, put your answers in the comments if you'd like bringing in a guy with some experience or working under a guy that's been successful, I think is probably pretty high on that list. Wouldn't you think? Like I still
Yeah.
think you bring in Chris Pronger, it's like there's question marks. You don't really know exactly what he wants. I understand he understands the players really well, and I think he does a great job on TV at describing stuff to people. He's a Hall of Famer, but it's just like I don't know if he can build the team properly, right? Like, and the one thing I will say is a lot of people that are interested in the job want to fully rebuild the team, and it doesn't seem like Keith Pelly wants that direction.
Yeah, for me, this is really a really weird scenario for the Leafs. And as you mentioned, like it is a complete shit show right now with what's going on because there's a whole Keith Pelly aspect right now, right? And Keith Pelly, essentially outside of the owners of MLSE, like he has the most amount of power in that company, not just within the Leafs, but within the whole of MLSE, right? The guy oversees what? I think it's 9 teams maybe that MLSE own. Like it's a fair bit of teams. And for me, when I look at this opening for the Leafs, not only do I want to see them hire a GM, but I also really think they should go back down the path and have a head of hockey operations who can be that be that middleman between the GM and between Keith Pelly and not have to have Keith Pelly so hands-on with the Toronto Maple Leafs. Because when this guy was hired, it was really supposed to be that he was there to be the link between the GM and the board of MLSE, right? He was not really going to be so hands-on with the Toronto Maple Leafs. In Keith Pelly's time here with the Toronto Maple Leafs, we've seen it time and time again, dude. This guy is pretty hands-on with the Leafs, or at least it seems like he's pretty hands-on with the Leafs, and at least more than I think he should be, right? And that's where I want to see them go down and have that head of hockey operations to take that pressure off of him and not have this guy that hasn't worked in hockey ever be be a guy that you have to run all these decisions through and have them to be so hands-on because essentially like I don't think it's good for the Leafs and I don't think it's good for that organization to have Keith Pelly's role be the way it is right now. And when I look at that, that's where I more wonder is that maybe can you go with a GM that doesn't have so much experience, like a Chris Pronger, or you mentioned, if you do bring in a head of hockey operations, right? Like Doug Armstrong, he's been kind of linked a little bit here to the Leafs job opening, and that's why I wonder, like, do you bring in a Doug Armstrong, have him be the head of hockey operations, and then do you also go out and hire like a Chris Pronger or a GM that has little bit less experience, maybe, so you can kind of be a two-headed approach there, right? Like, do
Yeah, I
you
think that
think
would definitely be a good. That would definitely. Sorry, I know you're probably just going to ask me that, but I was going to say that'd be really interesting. Now with Doug Armstrong, I just have a hard time thinking he's going to be the GM because one, I mean, his role is shifting to the president of hockey operations of the
yeah,
Blues. Now the thing with him is there's a lot of rumors of like he's from Sarnia, like he loved the Leafs, like maybe he shifts to the role of president of hockey operations with the Leafs, but I have a hard time believing he's going to be the GM of the team because one, he's still running the draft in 2026. He's the GM of the St. Louis Blues. Now,
yep.
maybe Alex Steen is going to have the final say on the picks. He is still involved with the draft, which will mean that he would not be able to be involved with the draft with Toronto, and his role doesn't change until July 1st when the new year in the NHL technically shifts over. So the problem is like I just don't think the Leafs are going to want to wait all the way to July 1st. And then July 1st hits when they can potentially be making moves. And it's like Doug Armstrong's first day and he's the GM of the
Yeah.
team. Right. And maybe there's a situation where St. Louis lets him go early or whatever. But that hasn't happened. Right. That's just a thought. So, I mean, I think there's a possibility he could be the president of hockey operations because of his experience. But I'm not convinced at all that he's the next GM.
I'm not convinced he's an ex-GM either, to be honest. Like, I think that there's no way he's leaving St. Louis for Toronto unless he is given that position as president of hockey operations, right? And to be honest, like, I think that if you're the Leafs, like, that's kind of the way you go is you really go after him and try to bring him in as the head of hockey operations, and then you allow him to hire a GM beneath him or figure something out there, right? Because to be
But don't they have
honest,
to get permission to speak to him though? Like, or can he just step down? Like that's because
that's where it is a
if
little bit
he
iffy.
stepped down and then like instantly signed in Toronto, like they're definitely going to be filing like tampering charges, right? Like, but the thing is, it's like I think they would have to get permission to talk to him. Like, did you hear about the
Yeah,
Eric Tulsky thing this past week?
yeah, I did. They
Yeah,
didn't
like
give him.
Nashville asked permission to talk to him. Meanwhile, he's already the GM of the Hurricanes. I mean, that's just bizarre. I don't understand why they would even ever think to give permission anyway, right? But like, that's just the one thing I don't understand here. Like, when Tree Living's coming to Toronto, it was like the end of his contract. They
Yeah,
agreed they weren't going to re-sign him, and then he just walked. Then he can talk to Toronto, but like Doug Armstrong's not like quitting the St. Louis Blues. He's just transitioning roles. So that's the other thing that's really strange to me is that like I don't really understand how this necessarily works. And I think they would have to get permission to talk to him.
I think they would as well. And to be honest, like who knows if St. Louis would even give that permissions, right? But at the end of the day, like if Armstrong really wants to have that job within the Toronto Maple Leafs organization, I'm sure he would be able to figure out a way to convince the Blues to allow allow him to speak with the Toronto Maple Leafs, right? Mark, speaking of the draft and all these offseason moves, I know you've been pretty heavily dialed in on the prospects over this last season, and we're going to go through today and talk about our top five prospects leading into the 2026 NHL draft. Mark, your number one prospect in this year's draft. Actually, you know what? Well, let's start at the bottom and work our way up. So your number five prospect in this year's draft, who do you have?
I think it's changed a little bit since last month from what I sent you, to be honest, moving forward. Yeah, it seems like a pretty interesting draft for the most part. Like I think last year there like there was so much hype heading into this year's draft and such little hype about last year's draft that I think it almost maybe overhyped this year's draft a little bit. But the one thing I will say is there's probably less difference makers than I would have anticipated heading into this year's draft, but there's still some really good ones. At number 5, this is a pretty D heavy draft, and I'm going with Chase Reed with Sioux in the OHL. He missed a little bit of time due to injury this year that I think kind of stagnated his position a little bit and maybe had him even drop out of the top 5. But I think since coming back, he's just made such a difference in the playoffs with the Greyhounds so far. And he's a guy that's like a really smooth skater, ability to quarterback a power play. And I think his skating just allows him the ability to be such a good defender at the same time and have an active stick. Just like a 6'2" right-handed defenseman that I think could be running a first power play in the NHL eventually, probably has the potential to put up 60 plus points. And I think a lot of teams are going to be really interested in him this year.
Yeah, I like Chase Reed a fair bit. From what I've seen him with him in the OHL this year, it's definitely been impressive. And the thing too that is kind of weird about this draft is there's a lot of defensemen at the top of the boards, right? So it's kind of tough to find that gap in like the talent or what they maybe project to be. And to be honest, like I think there's a bit of a gap between Verhoff and Chase Reed, but then I also think there's a gap between Chase Reed and like the next kind of best defenseman maybe in that draft class. Like I think if you're a team going after Chase Reed, you're definitely getting a top pairing defenseman who's also a right hand shot, right? And we all know that having a top right hand shot defenseman in the NHL, like it's definitely a bonus to have. So I think it's pretty safe to say Chase Reed is going to be.
The one thing I didn't mention about him too is like what really impressed me with him was when Cole Hudson got hurt at the World Juniors and he stepped in to run the first power play like as a draft eligible guy like that. He just looked like he fit in. Like he's no Cole Hudson, but he looked like he fit in like a glove. And I was like, man, if you didn't know who this guy was, you'd probably think he's like already been drafted for a year, and probably pretty close to like being in the NHL. So I think just his ability to play with guys that are older than him too, and just he doesn't look out of place at all. So I think he's got a lot of potential in the NHL. And I don't know if he's necessarily going to be a number 1 defenseman, but I think at worst he's going to be like a really good number 2 who can run your power play.
Yeah. Moving up to number 4, Mark. Who do you think the fourth best in this draft is?
Yeah, number 4, I'm going to go with Caleb Malhotra of the Brantford Bulldogs. Son of Manny Malhotra, a longtime NHLer, and he's currently coaching Abbotsford in the AHL this year. Now, Caleb Malhotra, dude, has just got so many intangibles to his game that I like. And the thing is, I think that top end skill is sort of there. I think that's what the question mark was earlier in the year. Like everyone knows he's a great leader. He's super committed to his 200-foot game. Like I don't know if you saw before the season started, he signed with Brantford, and Jay McKee's his coach, and he asked Jay McKee to give him every single referee and linesman's name in the OHL because he every time that he went up to them, he wanted to like address them by their first name. And he's not the captain of this team now, but I'm telling you, he's going to be the captain if he does stay there, or he will be in the
Yeah.
future. Might even be at the NHL level. And I know we were even talking about off air, like you were like, I like this guy, but I don't know if it's like he's on a great team, right? Like, I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of good players on this Brantford team, and they've got the ability to win the OHL championship this year. Here's one thing I'll say: 9 points in four playoff games, 5 goals. And Jet Luchenko, who's a first round pick to the OHL, is a centerman who's actively playing on his wing.
Yeah.
So I think that earlier in the year, Tynan Lawrence was 100% going to be the first centerman taken. I honestly don't think it's close anymore. I think Caleb Malhotra is 100% the first centerman going to be taken in this draft. And he might even go higher than 4, considering that teams like centers, man. And I think he's
Yeah.
just proving a lot of people wrong, and he's just been getting better and better every single day.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, him going higher than 4, like I could see it because the top 2 centermen in this draft is probably Caleb Malhotra and then Tynan Lawrence. Lawrence, he since joining the NCAA and BU, he really has not gone up the draft boards at all. He's probably slid a little bit, right? And after those 2 guys, it's a lot of defensemen there, right? So if you are wanting a centerman, like there's not a whole lot of available centermen here in the top 15, especially a guy like Malhotra, who in the NHL is going to be probably first, second line centerman, right? So I do like this player a lot. And to be honest, like the more since we had that conversation on air about him like playing in Brantford and oh, is he maybe overperforming a little bit because he's on such a good team? Like the more I've watched him and kind of
I don't buy
understood
it.
him, like he's a good player, dude.
I think he's part of the team's success. I
Yeah.
really do. And it's not like if they didn't have him, I don't think they'd be good. It's just that, like, dude, he's legitimately playing top 6 minutes on a legit like CHL contender for a Memorial Cup this year and making a huge difference, man. Like he just, I didn't even know if he was going to be a first round pick this year, and it just feels
Yep.
like it's like just he's jumping and jumping and jumping, and it's like man, like is it crazy to think a team might even like take a stab at him at like second overall if he keeps doing this? Like, what if he wins like OHL playoff MVP? Like,
Even the
is this another
Memorial Cup,
Caleb
right?
Desnoyers situation? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, he definitely does look like a special player and somebody who is going to continue to rise on these draft boards, considering that they might go to the Memorial Cup, right? So, like, we might still see him playing for another month and a half here, and who knows what he could do in that amount of time, considering how much he's already jumped up draft boards just since the start of the season. Mark, moving up to the top three in this draft, no matter what order you have it, like it's pretty unanimous what the top three, or pardon me, who the top three players in this draft are. There is a lot of discussion on what the order of that is, though. Who do you have at third, though?
yeah, at third, I'm going with Ivar Stenberg. He currently plays in the Swedish Elite League for Frölunda. He's a very skilled player. My one knock on him though is I'm not necessarily convinced he's going to be like a number one forward on a team or should be a number one forward on a team. I do think he's probably going to max out at maybe a little bit under a point per game clip in the NHL, which is still a really good player and a guy that I envision that's going to be a first line player. He's very skilled. I think he's going to be very useful in the power play. And the one thing is too is he's very committed to a two-way game, like
Yeah.
very much so. I will say that it's like very surprising. Like I would say Malhotra is probably the best two-way forward in this draft, but like Stenberg's 100% up there. I just think that someone we're going to talk about in a little bit has more offensive upside than him at an NHL level. Like I really see Stenberg. Maybe he is a point per game player. I would just say it's like if he hits it, I don't know if he's going to be consistently like 82 points a season. You know what I mean? I think he's more of like a 70-point guy, which is still really good. But he is a little bit on the smaller side at 6 foot, but he's got a really high skill level and like he's really smart too at the same time, right? So I think whoever gets him, they're really going to like him. I just don't know if he's that first overall pick that some people were talking about a couple months ago.
Yeah, from what I've seen with him, which isn't like a whole lot of actual watching him live or game highlights, but at the World Juniors, like he definitely was impressive there as a playing a as one of the younger players in the tournament on Sweden, right? Like you look at Sweden and what they did in the tournament. Stenberg was definitely a massive part in the success that that Swedish team had, right? And you could even see it there that he felt comfortable, right? And I think this is a guy that is a to be honest a lock to be a top three pick here. Mark, two guys remaining. Who you gonna have at one? Who you gonna have at two? Let's go with two.
Number two, I'm going to go with Keaton Verhoff. He currently plays at the University of North Dakota. He's a big guy, dude. 6'4",
Yeah.
212. Pretty good skater. I would say like he's not like a great skater overall. I think it's something he can definitely work on. But I think with Verhoff, it's almost like Malhotra. There's so many like intangibles to his game that are good. Great shot. Guy's got an absolute bomb. I think he's going to be running the first power play in the NHL. He's very good defensively. Like he
Yeah.
knows how to use his lanes. He's very active with his stick. He's not like overly physical for the most part. I think that's probably something that he could develop into his game, but he's also a 17-year-old kid that's going into the NCAA this year, which is definitely not an easy thing to do. I think the one thing when I watch Keaton Verhoff that impresses me the most is like he never panics when he has the puck, like ever. Like I think that I just think that's going to translate so well to the NHL in accordance to like zone entries and puck possession. I think if he can get his skating up a little bit, like he is like I'm convinced that Keaton Verhoff is going to be a number one defenseman in the NHL. How good of one, I don't know. I think time will tell, and it really depends on how much he develops his skating, and maybe he can get to that level to be like a Norris Trophy candidate or winner one day. But I think that he might not be the best defenseman right now. Like you could maybe argue Chase Reed is better at the moment, but I think if we're drafting in accordance to potential, I think that Keaton Verhoff has the highest ceiling of any defenseman in this draft.
Yeah, and the other thing you got to consider too is that Keen Verhoff is doing what he's doing right now in the NCAA, playing against tougher competition, where Chase Reed is doing the OHL, and like not a knock on the OHL or anything, but it's not the level of competition as the NCAA is, right? And like you're seeing it with Verhoff right now that he can do this at a higher level of hockey than Chase Reed can. And as you mentioned, like I think the big difference between Chase Reed and Keen Verhoff is like Keen Verhoff overall like projects to be a true number one defenseman, where Chase Reed is probably going to be a high end number two, maybe a lower end number one defenseman, right? Like I think when you look at Keaton Verhoff, like this is a guy that is going to be leading your blue line for the next 20 years, potentially 15 years. And I do think he has a very high upside. Mark, moving up to your last spot, number one, is it going to be Gavin McKenna or will you have him outside of the top five?
It will be Gavin McKenna, bro. I can't do that to him. Man, I think like it started to become a real question mark, like even before Christmas, right? Like,
Yeah.
could it even be Verhoff? Like Stenberg had a really hot start to the year in the SHL, but he's kind of cooled off a little bit. But he's still also on pace for one of the best point per game draft eligible seasons ever in the SHLs, right? So I think with Gavin McKenna, I mean that whole situation that happened with him, I mean everyone knows what happened at this point, but I mean, it seemed to like rejuvenate him a little bit, like even on the
Yeah.
ice, right? Like, I wouldn't even just say it was. I think he had 18 points in 14 games at the World Juniors, if I'm not mistaken. It was something like that. He was just over a point per game, and I think he only had 4 goals. But even that 8 point game he had, he's just looked like a completely different player. I think that he's a little bit more engaged, and I think that don't take this the wrong way, but I think that he has like Kucherov esque attributes to his game that I think he could develop into. I'm not convinced he's going to be Nikita Kucherov, to be quite honest with you. I think with him though, it's that the defensive side of the game definitely is not there. Like I think there's some more attention to detail that he's definitely going to have to figure out before he becomes an elite NHL player. But also, the way I just kind of see it is if I'm drafting a guy first overall, I want a guy who's going to have the highest ceiling in the NHL and probably put up the most points, or you know what I mean? Like that's
Yeah.
why I just like him over Stenberg, is I just think it's you'd look back at it as more of a mistake. Like shit, like I think there's a very more high likelihood that Gavin McKenna is an 100 point player than Ivor Stenberg is. Just that's just the way I see it. Like I think McKenna in his prime is going to be a point per game winger or better in the NHL.
Yeah, for me, Gavin McKenna, I think he is the best prospect in this class. Like as you mentioned, there was a lot of question marks early in the season, but it seems like over the past month to 2 months, like he's really performed at a high level in the NCAA. And let's not forget too, right? Like this was a big experiment for not only McKenna, but also for a lot of other players where it's like, do I leave the CHL and go play in the NCAA in my draft year? And for McKenna too, like he went to a Penn State program who's still kind of building their program up, right? Like it's not like he went to Boston College or a program that's been this big massive program for the last 15 years. Like I think Penn State only became a Division One program within the last 15 years, right? So like it was definitely an experiment not only for him but also for future players on whether to make that move or not. And to be honest, like I think it has kind of worked out a little bit for him. He got off to a slower start, but I think the second half of the season he definitely got back up to that level of what we kind of were expecting Gavin McKenna to be. Mark, I want to ask one last question for you here before we move on to the gaming or the game segment. Do you think after the top three there is a significant drop off, or what do you think the drop off in this draft kind of looks like?
I wouldn't say the top three because like I'm really convinced that like Caleb Malhotra is a lot closer to Ivar Stenberg than people think at this point. If honestly, I would say like the top six. Like the one guy I didn't mention that I would also throw in there that was close for me is Carson Carrolls. He's a left-handed shooting defenseman in the
Yeah,
WHL. I think he's legit. Like I think he's closer to Chase Reed as well than a lot of people think. And then after that, I would say it's like a little bit of a drop off in accordance to there's not a lot of forwards. And then the defensemen, there's still some very quality defensemen, but like not guys that I would think are going to be number one guys. This could be a hot take, dude, and this is my take for this year's draft. I think that 50% or more of the top 10 picks this year are going to be defensemen. I think there's going to
yeah,
be 5 or less forwards taken in the first top 10 picks this year, like
I could.
without a doubt. And I think that really matters. Like you were talking about centerman, you're like, is there another guy besides Tyne and Lawrence? The only other guy I think that has a chance of going in the top 10, and it really just depends how people think with his size, is Vigo Bjork. I think
Yeah,
he 100% has top 10 talent and should go in the top 10. Right now, he's 5'10". I don't know how much that matters to teams. There are people, I've also seen reports his dad is 6'1" and apparently hit a growth spurt when he was like 18, when he was 18 years old. So like there's a possibility Vigo Bjork even grows a little bit. And I just think his skill is off the charts, but he's 5'10". He might not even go in the top 15 for all I know.
yeah, it's definitely an interesting draft class just with the amount of defensemen that are projected to go high. It's like, will some of these forwards potentially fall? Will some of these defensemen maybe fall, and some of these forwards get taken a bit early? Like, there's a lot of question marks leading into this draft class. But the top five, though, the top five, top six, as you mentioned, like it definitely seems that it's like that, like those group of guys are all
Yeah.
there, and it's just what
And
order are they going to
even the
go?
Tyne and Lawrence thing we were talking about, like you said, like he made the transition from the USHL to the NCAA. Like that was a ballsy move. Like I mean,
Yeah,
like it didn't work out for him, but you got to give him kudos for trying. And the one thing I'll say is like, yeah, does it hurt his draft ranking? 100%. I thought he was for sure going to be a top 5 guy this year, and now I don't. But I think if you've got him like outside the top like 12 or 13, that's kind of a little bit insane. Like I think his skill level is just like off the charts, and I think that it's like you might look back at it and be like, wow, we judged this guy over like a 20 game sample size in the midseason of the NCAA. I
yeah,
just think he's got like, I watched Tyne and Lawrence play, and this might sound a little bit crazy, but I actually think he's got McDavid like attributes to his game. Like, you know, when McDavid's like picking up speed and transition and flying up the ice, like in junior hockey, like that's Tyne and Lawrence. Like, that's
yeah.
what he does, right? So I think if you just, I think he should probably go in the top 10. But I mean, if he's going anywhere outside of that, I think whoever gets him, it's going to be a steal.
Yeah, I definitely can't wait for the draft, and I can't wait for the NHL draft lottery because me being a Flames fan, dude, that's gonna be the most exciting part of the postseason for me, watching the draft lottery. Mark, I want to move on and wrap up the show with some hard hitting questions. I got three hard hitting questions for you. I just kind of want to get your opinion on these. So my first question for you is Nikita Kucherov will win the Hart Trophy. I guess it's more of a statement, but yes or no?
I'm going yes. I mean, I think the race is insanely tight, and there's arguments to be made for a lot of different players. I mean, probably four in specific, but I think the what Nikita Kucherov has done this year has been like a Hart Trophy caliber season. And the one thing I will say too is that um, he's got some really good players around him without a doubt. But it's like his running mate sort of in Braden Point also hasn't really been up to his standard this year either. And I
Yeah.
know Brandon Hagel's there, Jake Gensel, Darren Radish is having an unbelievable season as well. But I think that what Nikita Kucherov has been doing, and like, dude, I saw a stat that like I think since December 1st, he's basically playing at like an 172 point pace or something. And I'm like, dude, that is fucking crazy. Like, these are like Mario and Gretzky numbers and Yager. Like,
Yeah.
I think that if I'm looking at this at all, look, if you want to argue three other players, and I'm saying McKinnon, McDavid, Celebrini, I'm open for the argument. 100%. I just think at the end of the day, if I had to pick someone right now, I think that Nikita Kucherov season is the most impressive to me.
Yeah, he's had a very impressive season. And the thing that's crazy with him too is like he might be one of the more underrated players in the league, which is crazy to say with how good he is. But it's just like, man, like you get a lot of love for all these centermen, right? Like as you mentioned, like McDavid, McKinnon, Celebrini, Draisaitl, where it's like Kucherov, dude. Like Kucherov, if Kucherov was a centerman, I think there's like a very solid debate there to say that he's like a no doubt top two player in the league behind McDavid. Like Kucherov is that good. Next question for you, Mark, is will Patrick Waugh get another job within the NHL?
Like head coach?
Yeah, let's say head coach.
Yes, but I don't know if it's this off season. Is my
Okay.
answer.
Because it felt like after the last time he was fired by the Avs, it felt like we might never see him back in the NHL. And to be honest, despite him getting fired, I would say that this stint coaching the NHL, like it was a lot better, and it definitely did, I think, prove to a lot of people that he is a NHL caliber coach. So I am interested to see if he will get another job, and if he does, how long that will be. Last question for you, Mark, is the Buffalo Sabres have officially snapped their playoff drought. They are locked to make the playoffs. So my question for you is, will the Buffalo Sabres win a playoff series?
This is tough. I'm just trying to think of all the different scenarios, like who they could be playing, because
At this point, they're pretty much a lock.
they're not.
They're not,
They're not a
yeah.
lock. They're 2 point. Don't they have the same amount of points as us?
They're 2 points behind the Canadians in third place. Pardon
And
me. They're two
and
points
they
behind
Tampa
Tampa, who's in first. Montreal and Buffalo are tied, but Tampa has a game in hand.
and this is going to blow your mind even more. Tampa and Buffalo play tonight. Boom.
Yeah, they do. I forgot about that. You were literally going to go to the game.
I know. Because the problem is, it's like right now they're playing us. I mean, if they finish first, they could play probably like Ottawa or even the second wild card, which I don't know either.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go, yeah, fuck it,
you're going
yeah.
to say yeah.
Because I
I
honestly
would,
think if they play us, they're gonna beat us, and that's where they are right now, and that's what I'm going with.
yeah, I think honestly they are going to win a playoff series as well. Like, man, this team looks pretty good, dude. They've done a complete 360 compared to where they were, what, 3.5 months ago, Christmas time. I love what I'm seeing with the Buffalo Sabres. They're definitely a fun team to watch and will be a fun team to watch in round one of the playoffs.
The one team that I think that they might actually run into trouble with that I was thinking more about is like I actually think if they win the Atlantic and face Ottawa, like they could have a lot of trouble with
Yeah,
Ottawa.
yeah.
Tampa,
Because
I think that'd be an interesting series. They might like they could 100% lose it, but man, I could see them grinding out Tampa.
well, I just want everybody to remember there's the whole Keith Kachuk scenario going on right now, right? With what he said on their Brady and Matthews podcast. Last time Keith Kachuk said something that was a little controversial in the media, I'm pretty sure the Florida Panthers went to a Stanley Cup Finals. So he just did that, but with Brady's team, you know what that means? They're going to the Stanley Cup Finals this year. Mark, I know you have a couple questions for me, so let's move on to that here before we wrap up the show.
Yeah, dude, I got a couple questions for you here. Sort of similar style to last week. But the one I found interesting, I heard on a broadcast, I kind of really hope you didn't, or it's going to defeat the whole purpose of this game. Um, there are only three active NHL players right now that were drafted by the Atlanta Thrashers. I'm going to give you six names, and it's the same style as last week. There's going to be three yes, three no. Okay. I feel like you already know a couple of these, but I there's one
Yeah.
I'm really curious that if you are going to know this or not. So the first one, I'm going to go with Zach Bogosian.
Yes.
Okay. The next one I'm going to go with is Eric Comrie, backup goalie currently for the Winnipeg Jets.
No.
Okay. The next guy I'm going to go with is Adam Lowry, captain currently for the Winnipeg Jets.
That's a tough one. He kind of fits within that age range, but I think he might be a little too young to have been drafted by Atlanta. So I'm going to say no.
Okay. Um, Next guy I'm going to go with is Evander Kane.
Evander Kane, yeah, he was.
Okay. We got two more left here. I'm going to go with Nick Delorier.
That's a tough one because he fits within the age range for sure. I just don't know if he was drafted by Atlanta or not.
Okay, I'll give you the last guy so you can decide between the two of
Yeah,
them. The last guy's Ben Sherratt.
Ben Sherratt kind of fits in with that age range as well. I think the last one is Ben Sherratt, so I'll go Ben Sherratt.
You were 3 for 3.
3 for 3.
Yeah, I threw in Comrie and because they were drafted around that range. Adam Lowry was
Yeah,
actually, I think he was in the first draft that Winnipeg had. So he was just in that timeline. Ben Sherratt was taken in 2008. In this, I don't know what round it was, but he never played a game with them. He only played with Winnipeg. And then I threw Nick Delorier in there because he was in the last draft that it was Atlanta. And I was like, this
yeah.
age range is like kind of around the timeline, right? So maybe you can maybe he'll get confused by it. But 3 for 3, dude, good job. I know it wasn't the hardest one, but I mean, that last one, I was like, man, I don't know if he knows if Ben Sherratt was drafted by Atlanta or not. So I
Honestly,
kind of
I
want to ask him this.
honestly I didn't know that Ben Sherratt was or wasn't. Like I knew the Evander Kane and Zach Bogosian one, and for me, like the Delorier and between Delorier and Sherratt, I was just like, man, like
Even Adam Lowry, he's around that range too.
yeah,
He's what, 34, 35. So, I mean, you didn't get confused there, dude. But I'm really curious if this next game is going to confuse you a little bit. So, I'm hoping you haven't looked at NHL goalie stats today at all. Um,
I was looking
I
at it
want you to name
earlier.
the top five, just whether it's the same type of game, whether the goalie is in the top five of wins this season or not. Okay.
Okay. That's the one stat I actually didn't look at today for goalie stats. So
I never really think you're hovering around those goalie stats, and I was a former goalie, so I mean, I kind of like asking you those questions to see if I can throw you off a little bit. So, the first guy I'm gonna go with is Lucas Dostel.
I'm gonna say he is. He just plays so many games for Anaheim, and they've been pretty decent this year. So I'm gonna say that he is.
Okay, I'm gonna go Ilya Sorokin.
I think same thing as Dostel. Just plays so many games for the Islanders. So yes.
So you've got two yeses so far. I'm gonna go Jeremy Swayman.
Ooh, it's a tough one because he probably is. But if I get three yeses out of the way right now, I'm gonna say no. Even though I
Okay,
probably should have said yes.
I'm gonna go Jakub Dobish.
No.
Okay, Andre Vasilevsky.
Yes. Like that. That's the one lock. I think if he's not in there, I might have to never do this again.
Scott Wedgwood.
Scott Wedgwood, it's tough because Blackwood plays like it's kind of a tandem there. So I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say no.
Okay, Karel Vejmelka.
Yes, he is. I think that's four that have gone now.
Got four yeses. We've got one, two, three, four guesses left. Or sorry, three guesses left. Philip Gustafson.
I'm gonna say no. I don't think he's quite maybe played enough games to be top five.
Okay. So we've got two guys left. I'm going to give you both their names so you can
Okay.
decide. Jake Ottinger and Brandon Bussey.
Ooh. I think I think Jake Onger. No, I think Jake Onger is not in the top five, and I think Bossy is in the top five.
Okay. So you technically went 3 for 5. Goalies in the top five in order: Vasilevsky,
Yep.
Vamelka, Ottinger, Swayman, and Bussy. Goalies out of the top five: Dostel, you said yes, he's sixth. Wedgwood seventh. Sorokin's 10th. Gustafson is 12th, and Jakub Dobish is 14th. So 3 for 5, not too bad.
Yeah, not too bad. I definitely thought Sorokin would be in there just with the amount of games that he plays for the Islanders. I should have said Swayman to be honest, but
Yeah, he's having a hell of a year this
yeah,
year. Brandon Bussy right on the verge. Him and Dostel technically both have 29 wins, but Bussy's played a lot less games than Dostel has, so I
yeah.
kind of just gave him the edge there.
No, that was definitely a tough one. But yeah, I never look at goalie stats, and today I was looking at goalie stats. I was looking at save percentage and goals against average. So when you were saying that, I was like, oh fuck, I might have the upper hand here. Didn't look at wins though or shutouts, so it worked its way out there. That's going to wrap up today's episode, though. Next week we'll be back. I think next week we might be doing a playoff preview episode, Mark. I believe it is going to be our playoff preview episode
Yeah,
next week.
yeah.
So we're gonna be trying to
Bit later
figure
in the
out.
week, maybe we're recording a bit later in the week.
Yeah, it might be a bit different timing next week with when the episode comes out, just with how it's gonna work there. So stay tuned for that. But for everybody listening in right now, thanks for tuning in.